of interest, which I'm assuming one would fall under the operational part of it, probably how a training on ONA will span out and that's what I call the operational part of it. Because the concept is new, at least for few, they might be also a bit more of a strategic part of it. So because we are also waiting for a few more people to start, and latecomers always should miss the major, big, interesting one. So I'll start with the strategic part. That's what difficult to get it. So if you really look at social psychology or psychology, the fundamental questions they were always asking is what shapes human behavior? Is a fundamental question psychologists ask. So Freud will say it is the unconscious that shapes the human behavior. It is not much of our decisions are conscious. It is the early childhood and unconscious. Later, behaviorists will say, no, that's bullshit. We are born like a plain paper or white. And the early experiences at a conscious level would have shaped us when they did experiment with animals like dogs, everything. But one thing is common in all. If you wanted to address this issue of what shapes human behavior, generally, it is safe to say that our upbringing, our environment, our physical, emotional environment is what shaped human behavior. I was watching an interview of Bhutan's prime minister yesterday or day before, which I think he had come to India. And one of the India expert asked him a question saying that, sir, you've been to Harvard for 2 years. And could you tell us how Harvard shaped you? As a question, as a prime minister. So he laughed. He said, that's a wrong question. You should have asked me how India shaped me. So everybody was shocked. He said, probably you don't know that I was born in India. I studied till class 10 in India. So everything who I am now is shaped in these years, not later in Harvard. So all psychologists will agree that who we are is shaped by our environment, the context in which we grew up. So anyway, this journalist was very red-faced, so he said, no, I didn't know this, sir. So this prime minister laughed and he said, yeah, you didn't know because I'm not a celebrity, you know. So he got very offended. Like, no, sir, so he let him go. He said, no, it's okay that you didn't know that I was born and brought up in India. So that's the formative years that shaped who I am. So that's the theory. Now, why do I do what I do or changing human behavior? It's been a bigger chunk of work for HR folks. When we talk about culture, competencies, we're always looking at how do I get some desired behavior from individuals? Now, if our theory is what shaped our behavior is our environment, we may want to expand that word environment and say what it means. So when the Bhutanese prime minister said yesterday that my day is in India, so he studied in Kalimpong. Most of these Bhutanese rich people come down and study in Darjeeling or Kalimpong, in St. Joseph's or some of these convents. And we know that if you've been to a convent school, that shapes you. But is that school building that is shaping you? And you say that, oh, I went to a convent that has shaped me. What exactly is that? Is it the building? Is it the small chapel or a church inside the convent? What exactly really, when we say our environment shapes us?
Social structure or social
Correct. So if you say social structure, and if you ask again, go deeper, it is people who are around you and their interactions with you. In psychology, there is also called preferential attachment theory, where we say that we form this attachment based on how our primary caregivers responded to us. When we wanted them, were they available? How we related to them? How so fundamentally, when we say our environment shaped us, in other words, we are saying our social relationship shaped us. This is what social psychologists look. So, theory one in network analysis, they focus on an individual, or in other words, they focus on a node and study what might influence. So, if I wanted to study a terrorist and figure out how come somebody become a terrorist and willing to die. So, if I map the social networks, whom they came into contact with as a younger, what happened in their life, what is the social network in which they were formed, I can make some predictions about how these people might behave. This technique is also used in movie making. One of the fundamental theory in movie, in a character need to do things in a predictable way. So let's say your character in a movie, I don't know if you watch that Noida serial murder thing with
Sector 36. Yeah.
yeah. So one of the technique they do in movie, because it was a little bit of a movie also, is to answer this question, why the hell did he become like that? So if you watch the documentary, it says his dad was a butcher, dad or uncle,
Uncle, Mama was.
uncle, where he was there and somebody abused him physically. So it's all about that social network which influenced later. So one set of theory in social networks pay attention to an individual and study how the social networks have shaped an individual and how predictably this individual might behave. This is what our parents used to say, that your company is bad. you know. So they know that the company is going to influence you. So you only have to hang around. Whoever were our friends, they were never happy. So for them, people who are our non-friends are always good students. And our friend circle was always, and possibly they didn't know that we are the one who was polluting, the other guy is not. Their complaint is they are polluting us. Always. So one set of researchers always look at how individual behavior is shaped by the social networks. The other guys say that where in the first case we are giving importance to an individual, they say no, let us fade away the whole faces. When we look at individuals, we have qualitative aspects. He is sharp, he's intelligent, he is pretty, handsome, aggressive. So there is a lot of colors attached. They say, no, no, remove all those. Objectively look at the structure of the network and forget focusing on the people. So we are comfortable many a time on the first part, seeing people and how people have shaped and understanding people. So that's where our first instinct will go, even when we use network analysis, which has its strengths and weaknesses. But the other, whenever you decide on people or whenever you study people, there is always a subjectivity, because you are the one who is studying somebody. So you already have formed opinion about what is the standards of beauty, what is a nice behavior, what is not a nice behavior, what means aggression, what means openness. And with that, we can use a tool, but we are the one who is interpreting the tool. So when we study people, there is always a challenge of a bit of a subjectivity we can't avoid. Yes. So psychiatrists, more than studying the theory, a lot of work on themselves is to reduce this subjectivity. I don't know how, because they can get caught into the web of the patient, what they're going through. Yes. But what then network analysis, then they said that, okay, if I remove the face of Karthik or Agila and remove my subjectivity of whether I like them, not like them, whether they are smart, they are performing, hardworking, remove all those things. Focus only on the relationship structures they have. Which means if it was a social, do their parents talk to them every day? We're not bothered about the quality of parents, whether the dad is nice or mom is nice. We're only bothered about there is a daily interaction, period. That is objective. Yes. We also know that the interaction is coming from mom to the kid, but kid never calls mom, which is the truth many a time. Which is, when kids are growing up, they need us, but the fact that parents need them. So dependability may not be exactly reciprocal. So we study that, is the relationship reciprocal? Regardless of whether mom is good, bad, whether kid is what, it's just for focusing on a line and the structures. That's a second group of researchers. They want to remove the face, remove the subjectivity, remove the people factor, and look at networks from a mathematical, dry, cold-blooded analysis. And that is where it became popular in the last 30 years. And both are relevant. Both is possible. Why they could be an advantage of the second is how many people in a lifetime you can understand really. Difficult. There is a Dunbar number. It says that only this many people you can be close to. It's difficult. Each relationship is an emotional burden. Now, you can give a different meaning. It is not burden, it is lightness of love, whatever. But the fact is, you have to give in a relationship. You have to give. You have to give time. You have to give energy. You have to give mind space. So we can't create disproportionate connections or strong relationships, because each relationship will take some amount of energy from you. Then there is subjectivity. So if you wanted to study large number, you run a company which has 10,000 people. Now, getting to know one can happen at a senior leadership level. We can gossip about senior leaders. Oh, this is how it is and all those things. But an objective thing about what is a structure, what is a culture, what is an engagement level, you may want to look at a mathematical objective study where individuals are not much important. The structure of the networks are important. Yes. So there are these two aspects to network analysis. Individual, then look at network structure. The second, look at network structure objectively, then make assumptions about individuals. And some of the researchers are trying to combine these two. So at least two of the professors who have agreed to teach are trying to study a structural phenomena in network and relating to a human competency. For example, people who are becoming brokers into communities. So brokerage is a mathematical thing in social network analysis. There is also theory in sociology that people who are brokers make more money than people who are workers, which is true that most of the people in Delhi are brokers because that was a capital. So they're fixers. They possibly make more money than the guys who do real work. So they connect to, in that way. Two of the professors who are coming and teaching, their work is the system creating the brokers or brokers have some innate personal qualities that's still under exploration. In fact, Professor Prasad's work is using the 5-factor. So it's like an MBTI. And then he's looking at influencers or brokers and he's trying to correlate, is there a personality characteristics which is making them the brokers? The other bunch is arguing, no, like you happen to be in the right place at the right time and in the network, like Indrani came from Kolkata to Mumbai and become part of the network, you know. And the answer may be both. There could be a objective network phenomena, or there could be also personal charm or characteristics which is working. So that's the theory part to understand. All organizational network analysis came from social network analysis.
So if the hypothesis, and I agree, the Dunbar number, the moment that's true, beyond a point you cannot make relationships. By design also means you need a broker, right?
Yes, to go to another group.
So it's actually the moment an organization or a team or a unit becomes beyond a certain number, for that group to collaborate, I'm saying it's a necessary evil. It's neither. Now some people could be great brokers because of characteristic, but I think essentially any company that goes beyond a certain size lands up creating brokers, no?
Brokers, connectors. So let's look at this from an interesting experiment. Just visualize a hall or a room. Okay, let's put a size to it because it is a closed system. You can't. So let's say this is a 1,000 square feet hall, almost like a big hall of a large house, 1,000 square feet. And within that, there are 20 South Indians, Bangaloreans rather, and 20 North Indians in that room. So chances are the 20 Bangaloreans will be, Kannadigas will be in one corner. The Bayas will be on the other corner. Now, if you are an HR leader, you get very pissed off with this. How can this be? There is a silo. I need to mix them. So if you're going for an off-site, you will carefully plan who will stay with whom. Mixing is your agenda now because this is very bad. But what we don't realize, when Kannadigas were all standing in a corner and Bayas were all standing in another corner, within them the communication was faster because physical proximity is high. They were in two corners. If you mix them and make them stand with equal distance with each other in the 100 square feet hall, you may feel that, wow, I have dissolved the silo But communication will take more time now. Execution. Because two clusters are dissolved into equal distance nodes now in the 1,000 square feet. But that's what traditionally we tend to do. Other strategy can be what Karthik just mentioned. You figure out a broker in the Kannadiga group, and you figure out a broker from the Baya group and connect these two. So communication execution is happening. Anyway, they're closer, and information flow is also happening. Maybe that's another possibility to look at that, because easier to do that. So these are some of the theoretical aspects of one of the things which most people in HR or someone we haven't studied or really heard is this term called sociometry. We have heard so much of psychometry. Because again, going back to my first two theories, psychometry is studying an individual, figuring out an individual. And we invest so much. And mostly traditional consulting firms, their work was also, I can use a tool, I can do an assessment, I can do one-on-one, I can work on this, I can work on somebody's strengths, and really, really focusing on individuals. But sociometry said, no, let's focus on the relationship patterns people form with each other. So Jacob Moreno, who invented this term, is also probably the first guy who started drawing social networks to figure out. And his claim to fame was when he was posted in a school where students who ran away from home as hosted. That. So basically, the students have done something. And the idea is you need to change the behavior and make them better citizens. Now, that if you have run away from home once, and if you have committed some petty crimes as a kid, there are all chances that they will try to run away from this place also. And Jacob Moreno started predicting using networks, if one girl or a boy run away, who else might also run after that? That made him popular. So he could predict. So in research, a theory is something that tells you what it is, and it should predict a future action. It should explain what it is and should predict a future action. So he was able to create that. And he termed this called sociometry. By the way, he's also the one who invented the term psychodrama. Psychodrama is all the study about the interactions with people, not about individuals. And he said psychodrama can come only after sociometry. Study the structure of it. So all org network analysis came from social network analysis concept from a social psychology. But what suddenly made this move is the bloom in data science. And computers can process this. These guys were all making diagram with a hand. In fact, we are doing a study now with Sundaram Finance. And the promoter owner called Harsha, who was a McKinsey consultant, and for a client, he has done with a hand. Only leadership team. And he had experimented. So when he heard that this is what we do, he said, okay, I need to do it for my company. So there was a limitation. So if you read any paper, it will be always about a size of 50 people, 60 people, because data science was not evolved. Computers were not able to process this. So in the last 30 years, because it is an objective and mathematical, there are possibilities of doing this on a large scale. And there are trial and error. There are a couple of blunders US Secret Service has done by using network analysis. They did an experiment. I forget the name of the project once, by mapping every phone call secretly. Everybody's phone tapped. And from there, they were trying to identify terrorist groups from the phone call. And till them, they got the group. Then they were trying to identify what are the senders of this terrorist group, which numbers are coming common. And they got 12 such numbers. And they went to crack down this place. All geographical information, numbers. All 12 of them were Pizza Huts. That's where maybe they met. They connected. But they're trying, using huge amount of data to, how do you figure out this? Yes. So that's where I think we are interested in, because we are not much interested in doing qualitative research with a smaller data, which none of the HR people will. Why? If you have time, you can always do that. But as a first step, we were looking at objectively some of the things which we anyway do, which we might not have looked at through a real scientific lens. So phenomena like engagement. I always say that if you go and look at definitions of engagement by 3 different consulting firms who run an engagement survey, all the definitions are different, which is a big challenge in a research methodology. Fundamentally, research starts with having one collective definition. So I think the future, some of the stuff that we are trying to do is, while the exploratory analysis is fun, but for that, you got to be a Sherlock Holmes. So it gives you the data. You need to just keep figuring it out, what it is. We just did a 80-member team of one of the India's largest bank. They have 80 people in L&D. Okay. And I was just doing a curious exploratory analysis of 4 people who have highest influence. And I found them not very seniors. So I was curious, what is it? Sasanga and Srijita, you should check that, because I went to the LinkedIn profiles. They have around 19 to 20 years experience in the bank.
Tenure levels are.
Yeah, so fundamentally, in their context, if you want to be an influencer, even if you have competency, you are nice, you will not, unless you stay there for a long time. Now, that's just data. Data is available. I just went there. So that's fun. Now, our tool or a generic platform might not have given. Now I have a little bit of qualitative data. When did they join the bank? How they grew up? Because I went to the LinkedIn profile. When you join this, then you're mixing my theory 1 and theory 2. You're focusing on the individual because you have some context. You're also looking at the objective network data. So that's where I'd stop. Now we will just check what is it that you would love to hear, whether it is about the program, how, an operational aspects. So once I've given the overview, we can look at any specific questions, what could be useful.
So I have few operational questions. I have a go-ahead on a particular cohort, but go-ahead is from the business. Now I need HR go-ahead. So how important is it to have the contextual awareness of the cohort that you are going to assess?
Now, you get two kinds of data. Think about it from my earlier explanation. One is faceless, quality-less,
Hmm.
drama-less.
Hmm.
You don't know. Mathematically, you can make some things.
Hmm.
You may just suddenly say that, yeah, Node Z. You didn't even know the name.
Hmm.
Node Z has high number of incoming connections.
Hmm.
That's mathematics.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you have another data. Node Z has been in the system for 15 years. Now you might look at, does it mean that to have this incoming data, is the tenor equally important to other people? Not much context. So you will then correlate a theory called tenor seems to be directly proportional to the trust or influence in individual experience here.
Hmm.
Now, it has nothing right or wrong, but you can critically look at, oh, in my context now, is it good?
Yeah.
My leader keeps saying that we need new blood, we need to change. But my company runs with the people who have been in the system for.
Hmm.
So you add context there.
Yeah.
So context decide how you will use the information.
Understood.
That's where we overlap. I'll give you another interesting example, and I always tell this. This was with one of the Tata companies. And we done the network analysis, and I used to coach the CFO. I found one person in his team, extremely, highly connected. Everybody wants a piece of him. And because I don't have the context or anything, in a casual conversation, coaching conversation, I said that, you have this guy. He seems to be a superstar. He said, you're talking about this guy? I'm planning to fire him. So I said, what happened? He said, everybody has a complaint about him that he sits on things. He doesn't give back things on time. He has become a power center. Now, if you really look at from the context perspective, and he didn't have this context that network showed him he is overburdened by requests because in his vicinity, nobody has the expertise he has. Now, if you overburden a guy, two things can happen. One, he or she may feel that I am inevitable. Everybody wants me. Two, I can also become slow. Then when I am slow, people are escalating that is a CFO. CFO there, the role was, if he was really ingrained in his team, he would have got. But his role that time was to manage the corporate entity. This was a conglomerate. So he has to largely go and talk to the board and the corporate leaders. So he had very less time to understand his team. So he thought this guy is actually a troublemaker. So there is an objective truth. There is a context. And context means it is subjective. Each one will see the context differently. Yes. So it is important to overlay context in taking action.
Yeah.
So when he asked me, what do you do to this guy? I said, you need to release him from certain things. You need to see if you have other expertise in that area who can take some of his burden. You possibly need to look at a succession planning for this guy because he seems to be expert, but his people skills are low. You have seen such people in finance sometimes. They're too good in what they do and they can get into but they don't know how to talk nicely or manage things. And we said that could be a developmental area for him. That guy is a CFO now. Another company. Not this guy. Yeah, he's a CFO of another reality company. Yes. So you add context, but look at first very objectively
Hmm.
and not allow your judgment. Then look at context. One of the companies that we did this large Indian firm in the energy power. They always try to hire some nice pedigreed CHROs. The first CHRO when they started was an XLR, a very senior guy. Didn't work out for them. And this guy had come from Asian Paints and that kind of pedigree. Again, they hired a CHRO, again an XLRI person, highly pedigreed. And then there's a promoter, right? This promoter run company. Didn't work out. That time, they had done an ONA. And the promoter decided that this time, why don't I give a chance to someone who is inside the system, who've been loyal, but not necessarily that, smart face I can show to the world. Initially, he wanted that. When he tried, two candidates came up. And both were in the system. Both were loyal, were nice. Then they used ONA to choose whom to give that, that role. We couldn't have done it without their context. What it means that way. So when you add context, this kind of decisions can happen. So when you do exploratory analysis like this, decision can be an individual, about an individual, his or her development change, or a small team. Look at, we all know that efficiency of the team depends on how connected the team is. That's what every team leader, CEO know that, I need to build this. That's also the reason team building become the big thing. Everybody know that some level of team building activity. When we used to work with McKinsey, if we have a new project, there was a mandate that people who are going to work in the project should spend time before and build that as a team. Everybody know that. But we don't have a tool to really look at the structure of this team and the relationships in the team. We tend to do an opposite thing, which is not very scientific. We use a psychometric test for each individuals and try to get a collective data of the team. That's very bad. That's wrong, which is, what is the collective strength of the team? Where we are ignoring the relationships people form in the team. Though colloquially and traditional wisdom always say an average team with a better relationship can outperform another team of high-skilled people without having the relationships. So tomorrow, let's say if you have done an ONA, and that's for thousands of people, but your focus is on one particular team. So one of our clients, they've hired somebody at a CXO level. And the previous person was asked to go. And there was some toxicity there. And that person's two lieutenants are still here inside, who are close to that person who went out. Now, their initial diagnosis is that that person who went out is making life miserable here now for this team. There are multiple issues. The new person is not able to. Blah, blah, blah. Now, I am talking one-on-one to collect this, and I wished if I had the network data, I can really see what's really going on that way. So when you look at a smaller data set, you can use more of your context because you have some idea. That's where most research happens. But when you're playing around with a 10,000 people data set, then you will have to limit yourself about general engagements, collaboration patterns. But when needed, you can get into deeper of a smaller sets.
And from the organizations, we would also require the org chart information.
We don't take it because we typically get the designations.
Huh.
We know,
In plan. Okay.
but you should use it as a context.
Yeah.
For example, some of the very generic things we can play around. Again, large data set. Let's say an organization has level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. I can figure out, is there one level who faces more relationship pressure than other levels?
Yeah.
And why is it? It's very mathematical, it's very objective. Yes. I can figure out collectively what is the reach of the leadership team, where all they are reaching. Yeah, so when it is a large data, we tend to limit into very objective facts because it will take years for you to get into the details of. But you may want to study only a smaller piece, but a large piece data is available. That's always useful because whenever you need, you can go and study the small piece. Social network analysis is not very useful if you do it with a smaller set of people because their relationship will anyway go out of their thing.
In fact, in large data sets, anomalies could be a great contextual understanding.
That's
so if
right.
10 departments, 9 are facing pressure on fifth
Right.
level, but in this department, fourth guy is the pressure.
Yeah,
Your leader is useless, and that's why everyone is going below.
that's right.
So I think those are like important.
Right.
That's the aberration could be interesting.
We haven't started analysis. We are currently doing a large data set for a client in Chennai. So largely they sell smaller financial products. And they have these clusters. So they will have a cluster in Mysore, one in here, every city, and they are giving loans and gold and blah, blah, blah. It'll be interesting to look at if they have 100 such units. Does the network structure of this unit vary? Does it have any correlation to performance of this unit? Which we did with Schneider, and there was a correlation. Yes. Yeah. Performance and the network structure. Any other thoughts?
Santhosh, hi, Raj here. Sorry, I realized I don't have my camera on too. Good to see you. Quick question. If one were to start this journey in an organization, where do you recommend it starts? What is the right place or what's the best place in your experience to start? Is it solve for a problem or start with the leadership or to do a large set first and then contextualize it further? Any thoughts on that?
To me, Raj, the best starting point for any change in the world is one deciding to do something about it and having the guts. Then you will figure out how do you want to place it, push it. The question is, do you want to do it? So that's the first one, somebody. And you're operating from there. Then you will say that, yeah, maybe in my context, pitching it with a problem is good. Maybe in my context, pitching. But it comes from that need that I possibly have to go and figure it out. Why am I giving a very avoidance kind of an answer that all this can be true? Some of the clients that we use, they do it every year like a health checkup. They don't have a problem. Some cases, so I was talking to somebody, a new multinational organization in India is going to get a new CEO, and that guy will join from France only in March. Okay, only in March. He's talking to me, and he would like to do an ONA to see Palace. What's going on? And he'll cook up a reason for that. Yes. So either it is a regular annual checkup, because anyway you're getting an idea about engagement, collaboration, team effectiveness, people. Or I wanted to really study how do I leverage these two BUs I have. And I feel that leveraging that would can really unlock some growth potential. And I can look at the network. So traditionally, consultants who worked on solving a problem are charged heavily, up to 1 CR for a network analysis study, because they were solving a problem, right? And the problem is that expensive for you. So they don't. Whereas our intention is to pitch this as a health checkup and you figure out whatever you want to do. That's also the reason we make it very economic. So you can just keep doing it, figure out.
Is this suggestible, Santhosh? Is this suggestible for a CEO to come already knowing the network?
So this guy is in the family.
Oh, okay.
He's actually the global CFO, whom the company has decided to move to India. So he's also CFO global as far as it. Let me do this and understand.
But without context, it can also be like.
Yeah, because he's insider, na. That way, that guy again has been in the company for 22 years. So must be closely interacting and happen to be an Indian.
Got it.
But working in Paris, the headquarters for long. So multiple, one, like most of the tools that a pulse checkup or something that we do is annual. And the advantage of trying that is you're taking low risk. And then you give something nice to the stakeholders. Than pitching saying that I'll use this, solve this problem, because anyway, this insight is not going to solve a problem. It's going to be it's a diagnostic tools which is giving you an ultrasound.
I think one way to pitch this, at least which has always worked for me, is it truly gives you operational solutions as well.
That's
Like
right.
predicting attrition from ONA is a real use case scenario. I have seen it. So anyone who's projecting it for the first time, when you try and tell them social capital, they won't get it. But if you tell them that, can I predict attrition for you? That every CEO is interested in.
That's right.
I think those are promotion use case, attrition use case, are much more effective, tangible.
Correct.
And then this is on top of it. By the way, I'll also tell you who's changing the mood of the organization.
That's right. And like some of the firms like Agilize from Aditya Birla or Tata Group or Mahindra, they invest a lot in certain key leaders to see that they will be there in future. Okay. Now, mostly we only have psychometric or performance reports of them. We don't have their sociological influence reports. So in certain organizational context, just succession planning can't be like a in a startup context, but very established thing. Like we did the succession planning for Maruti. For them, it is a multi-billion work. Because that's a key thing for them, because they know that they're going to be there. Nobody, leave Maruti. Or all the people whom we're working with, they were there for 25 years and they're going there. This add a beautiful layer to see the network patterns and what can go wrong. People can be smart. But if people are not going to be able to navigate, so that could be another case. Third, I always found that everyone complains about increasing peer level collaboration. Again, structured organizations. New age organizations less because anyway it is a flux. There are no structures. So people have to connect and do things. But in a structured, established organization, it's a big challenge. And that is also one of the key problems that innovation doesn't happen. Innovation usually happen in the intersections of two things. So economics, psychology, behavioral economics. In the intersections. Because innovation doesn't happen you going deep into one subject. You need multiple things. That's why we always say that agile new age organizations are much better in innovation than traditional organizations. But we don't realize the power of peer collaboration in innovation. Because when multiple set of people come together and discuss ideas, that's where the innovation happens. And ONA can give you an idea about how to improve, increase who is there in that, in that network and how to go about it. Yes, Narendra.
Hi, Santhosh. No, I'm currently with a 12-year-old edtech startup, and my headcount is 380. Now, I just wanted to check for a startup, would you recommend ONA? Do I have to do an active ONA by running a survey? Yeah, that is my question.
So the objective question there is it good to do an ONA for 380 people? The startup, another thing is just a subjective part. Remember I said, if the data set is small, you can deep dive into individualistic things. That's why all research papers would be talking about 100, 200, because they can deep dive. Yes. But if you're just looking like an annual health checkup on getting some data on what is the level of engagement, what is the level of thing, and then it is a large data set. Yes. So any exploratory study that you need to do, you need to have a smaller data set. That's the reason for part of the curriculum, we said do a study only with the 200. Only then you will explore. More than that, you can't. Large population. So yes, good. So my last client was US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. They only have 40 people. But 20 people sit in Washington, D.C. and 20 people sit in Delhi. And most of the Indian organizations which has a presence in US are the members. They need to support. So because it was only 40 number, we were able to deep dive to a lot of exploration saying that what is the level of information flow currently between US and India. Are they doing cross-selling? For example, they have a department on taxation. So anything to do with UX tax or that one, their client will reach out to them and they are supporting. Because the taxation team do not have a relationship with the other guys, they're not even able to serve the client better in that way if they were. So thumb rule, smaller data set, deep dive and exploratory analysis possible. Larger data set, you just need to depend on a software to just give you some. So it's a good idea.
So you're suggesting, for example, if I have to replace my existing engagement survey and use an ONA, I will have to run an active survey, right, Santosh? I can't depend on passive this thing to draw trends.
Active. The fundamental difference, Narendra, between active and passive is passive is extremely objective. which simply says that these two have an email connection. Active tried to build some specific reasons for that connection. That connect is to share expert. That connect is trustworthy, which your passive cannot do. So from an exploratory analysis perspective, active gives you a bit more qualitative data and passive gives you just quantitative.
One last question, Santhosh. For example, if I were to run it org-wide, will every person get a report, or how will the report look like? Or will it be a leadership level report? Or
No, first of all, you need to figure out what could be the objective. So let's say you say it's about engagement. One pitch. While the report will give you everything, but one pitch is about engagement and collaboration pattern. Now you decide who need to know this. Because whoever know this need to take an action. So everybody might not have to know this. Or do you intend to share with everybody and do something about it? Good, share with everybody. But we give access to only one person. So they can choose. We have added another element which is not useful for this purpose, is to give an individual report on their own network connections. That is just to motivate people that I get something, but that doesn't help you in studying anything. That's a ready-made thing. Yes. As a part of the course, what we were looking at is to do exploratory analysis. So imagine if there are 20 studies that happen. One will say study about correlation of network structure and performance. Yes. Another study is tenure and trust formation. How it is. So we'll create a very interesting, very open-ended thing where you have to go and figure out and support. So it becomes very objective case which comes out. Like other than what Karthik got in our report, he tried to figure out certain things very specifically about attrition, hiring, and that's where you start playing with the data, which is otherwise an engagement survey somebody does, you get a report. You don't do anything.
yeah. No, in fact, thanks for clarifying. In fact, in the maybe a year ago when you did a session, you spoke about individualized reports, and that piqued my interest, and that is one thing I want to check. But I do get it that it has to be selectively shared and there has to be an analysis. So I get that. I also wanted to ask this, Santosh, say for example, I go through the program and my organization does it. So what will be the next step? After, for example, after 1 year, do we have to repeat, or what do you suggest as the next step for the next year? As a continuity, what frequency, or what would you suggest as a follow-up?
Again, my answer should be, why are we doing it? I am doing it as a part of a course to give some hands-on experience, period. I have no long-term plan for this. Now, of course, if people are finding it useful, we want to do it next year, feel free. Otherwise, we are doing only a practical part of this course. As I said, and I don't know whether you were here, many clients who have done, they do every year. It's there. But I don't have a preference to say that you should do every year. In fact, who is that client, Sasanga? They are saying they want to do half yearly. Oh,
Catalyst,
it's a non-profit.
Catalyst management.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to do, they actually came every quarter. We said, no, yeah, let's do it. That is we can do.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is if you give us a lot of input and we work on it, how do we check if things are changing the next time around, right? So that is,
It depends on what you're working. For example, your research focus is I am studying high performance network pattern and trying to see if there is a correlation. Then Kadam, research is over. Which now company, what they can do, how can I help other people to make this kind of a network and then have become performers? So in this case, what I'm saying is take a very small study, which should be new, exploratory, and curious. Yes. And
Sure.
something can be done. It is valuable for the organization. That way.
Sure. Thank you.
We
Thank you
have
so
so
much.
many different cases to
Yeah.
figure out that way. Okay, Large. There is a question from Raj. Is Raj still here? Yeah. Okay, Raj.
Yeah.
Now, to answer this, you need to have some fundamental theories before.
Mhm.
What makes somebody leave?
Yeah. There's a personal aspiration slash there's a trigger externally or internally, or they're unhappy, or they find something else that they believe uh, is a better space for them.
I think you're frozen, but let me try. So basically, there could be two kind of things. One, I'm getting a better pay or better role,
Right.
personal aspiration, blah, blah, blah. I don't see anything here, right? So I'll move. Second, my manager is making my life miserable. I am not getting a better pay, but this is very horrible here. I don't know. Now let's answer another question. What can hold somebody in a place?
Again, manager has a big role to play if you enjoy working. Second is I'm excited about what I do, the people that I'm working with,
Yeah.
the culture in the context in which I'm working.
Yeah. So almost most of the researchers agree to one point, which is called affiliation one feel to a place. It's not just with the manager. So in social network terms, we call this social embeddedness, one experience. And if somebody is experiencing that, their emotional cost of living is high. So to make it in a very simple way, if somebody is in the periphery of the network, their chances of leaving is more than somebody is in the middle of the network. That's how we figure out.
So I think one big takeaway for me through this conversation, Santhosh, is you're, once one understands how to think about this, there are multiple contexts in which one can extrapolate, work through, because the core foundation is how you relate to yourself and people around you, right?
Correct, correct. What kind of a relationships are formed in the vicinity and how far those relationships can take you. That's what, earlier conversation we say you need brokers to reach out to the large organization.
Thank you.
Okay. So good, then we are almost an hour. There are no more questions. We will. Yeah, Narendra.
Generally, how much time does it take for us to start and conclude the survey and get the report? And is there a possibility to save the data in the organizational, storage? Is it possible for us to do that?
That's a Sangha and Srijita.
So the first part is easier. The second part is a bit more complex. To start for a 380, 400 people, starting the survey takes a day or two once you give us the data. it takes around 2 weeks for the people to complete the survey, and then another 1 week to 10 days for the analysis. So 1 month is a sufficient time. But in terms of storing the data which we generally collect is not a confidential data. We just ask for names, email IDs, and designations, which are called as non-personally identifiable information. So these are stored in AWS servers anyway. We could give, in case there are any security requirements saying that, hey, that should be in so and so region, we can adhere to that. But otherwise, beyond that, there isn't a lot of data storage that happens in this case, unlike a passive ONA where you actually get into the emails, the database, etc. So usually that's not a concern, the data security part.
Sure. Shashanka, just to clarify, so for example, when I do an active and an ONA, there won't be any component of passive ONA, is it?
There won't be any component.
So it's not a combination.
It's not a combination. Active ONA is very qualitative. Passive ONA requires fairly different capabilities, and we suggest organizations to start off with an active ONA, right? And then maybe later on explore passive, but active is a very different ballgame.
Thank you.